Hello again. Thank you for watching my YouTube channel, Just the Talk. I hope you're enjoying it and you're subscribing to it and telling it to your friends about the good information that I try to provide. Today's information that I'm going to provide is related to eating carbohydrates and avoiding the spikes. What I realized since I've been watching the diet and the dietary evolution that has occurred from Atkins diet to various other diets, South Beach diet and low carb diet and intermittent fasting, the main idea seems to be that we don't want a glucose spike. And the glucose spike is routinely occurs when you eat carbohydrates. And whether it is a complex carbohydrate, it is a little bit better. But with the sugary stuff, the cokes, the candies, the chocolate chip cookies, etc., we have a high spikes. And there have been tables, and you can even go on website and find out what is called glycemic index. The glycemic index is how much sugar a particular substance give rise to in the glucose. So if you take 100 grams of rice versus 100 grams of bread or whatever, how much sugar would rise? Because then, of course, there is an insulin spike. So there are various techniques that people have advised, developed to enjoy the carbohydrate, but at the same time avoid having a spike of the sugar, which leads to an insulin rise. So I've been looking at different stuff, and it looks like there are several techniques. In the past, when I talked about glycemic index, I'd mentioned about mixing and matching different carbohydrates with different things. And this is again based on how the absorption is done. So if you can slow the absorption of the carbohydrate that you're eating, then the glucose spike would be less and the insulin spike would be also less. So one of the things that I came across, and this is very unusual or uncommon knowledge, is that there's something called resistant starch. The resistant starch are not easily digested in the stomach, and so they are passed to the small intestine where they are digested, and they produce certain things which are improve actually insulin sensitivity. Butyrate is one of the things that they do. How do you get to this resistant starch? And one of the technique that has been described is when you cook something, you can cool it down, put it in the freeze for 24 hours and reheat it. Doing this, the starch changes or the carbohydrate changes to what is called resistant starch. So you can have a rice or a bread or pasta which is hot when you make it, cool it down, put it in the refrigerator for 24 hours. Now it develops resistant starch. And so when you eat this particular rice, which is reheated, and the pasta, which is reheated, you are not going to get as much glucose spike as you would get if you would have eaten it fresh. This crystallization of starch occurs when you cool and heat it, and then that gives you an advantage of enjoying the food that you like, but not have the spike of the glucose that you can do. So this is an important thing. Again, the test may not be exactly the same, but it is much better than not totally avoiding it. This is pretty good for vegetarians, as we can't eat meat along with the carbohydrate, which is a second technique. The second technique to avoid the glucose spike is to combine the carbohydrate with either protein or fat. Combining it with protein or fat reduces the rate of absorption. And for example, if you take a bagel, it's pretty bad as far as glycemic index is concerned because it is carbohydrate. But if you put a peanut butter on it, or maybe even cream cheese on it, what you're going to do is the absorption is reduced and the absorption rate is reduced rather, and that gives rise to a less spike in the glucose. So when you are eating any carbohydrate, avoid eating it in a pure form of carbohydrate. For example, if you're eating rice, don't eat rice alone. Combine it with beans. If you're eating a bread, don't eat bread alone. Add something fatty or protein. I like peanut butter, I like custard, and I like cream cheese. So if you combine either one of them when you're eating bread, that will reduce the rate of absorption and reduce the glucose spike and reduce the insulin spike. So number one was to heat, cool, and heat again on a carbohydrate. Number two is combining carbohydrates with protein or fats, and that will reduce the rate of absorption. Other thing that we can do is adding acids to it. For example, if you're eating potatoes, adding olive oil will help to reduce the spike because olive oil is a fat. And if you add like lemon or something, that might help as well. I personally don't like vinegar, but that will serve the same purpose. And some people like apple cider vinegar to lose the weight. The next one is, how do you eat? Now, when you go to the restaurant or when we are eating, you have an appetizer, then main course, and then in between we have a salad, and then we have a main course, and when we have dessert. If you would change the sequence, how you eat, and avoid eating carbohydrate as the first thing, but eat either the vegetables like salad or broccoli and protein first, like if you're eating meat, maybe a chicken or something, and followed that by the carbohydrates, bread, pasta, etc., then it will again reduce the glucose spike. So instead of eating potato chips and salsa to begin with, then the salad, you can, and then the bread and the pasta, you can reverse the process, eat this salad, eat the protein, whether it is beans or whether it is chicken, whether it is red meat, and then end with the carbohydrate, bread, pasta, etc. You will avoid the glucose spike and avoid the insulin spike, and this will help to reduce the glycemic index, and then that will also reduce the absorption. Now, all of us know, or probably should know, that when you walk, you are burning calories because muscles are working. When the muscles are working, they don't need insulin. And so walking 10 minutes after a meal, when you start burning the glucose, and that does not need the insulin, you automatically will help the blood sugar level. Get it? If you eat meal at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, and then walk for 10 to 15 minutes. When you're walking, you're burning calories, even though not much, but your muscles are working. When the muscles are working, they burn the glucose, sugar, without needing insulin. And that helps to reduce the glucose level in your blood. So walking after a meal for 10 to 15 minutes will help you to reduce the glucose spike, and do the same thing, insulin spike will be also reduced. Last but not the least is, when do you eat? When we sleep, everything slows down. And no matter what you do, your glucose will spike if you have eaten late. And so try to eat 7 or 8 o'clock latest. Don't go to bed for at least 2 to 3 hours after that. If you avoid going to the sleep for 2 to 3 hours after you eat, you're going to help the spike of the glucose that occurs because you were eating a big meal. So quickly summarizing this, resistant starch by heating starch, cooling it down to the refrigeration, and then heating again helps you to prevent glucose spike and insulin spike. Combining carbohydrate with fats and protein reduces the absorption rate, reduces glucose spike, reduces insulin spike. Changing eating sequence to vegetables and proteins first, then the carbohydrate, whether it is chips, bread, or pasta, will again help to reduce the glucose level spike and insulin level spike. Again, couple of other things. Walking 10 minutes after the meals will burn the glucose without needing insulin. Again, help to reduce the insulin and glucose spike. And again, not sleeping after eating for at least 3 to 4 hours, 3 hours preferably, will help you to reduce glucose levels. I hope this helps you. Thank you for watching. If you like, please subscribe. Have a nice day.